So the last part for today, I'd like to talk a bit about the economic situation and about the commercial vehicle market. And if you have some questions, please feel free to interrupt me so then we can talk about this. If we look to the overall economic situation in the world, then we see that the GDP growth in Germany is lower than in the euro area at the moment, and the euro area growth is lower than the, for example, United States. And the United States, as always, grow with a lower rate than, for example, China or India. But the situation, which is a bit complicated for us in Germany, is that we saw a small recession last year. So the GDP we saw minus 0.3%, and the euro area was also quite weak, and 2022 was also very weak. So we had since a few years a situation which is not so good, and this is due to in Germany to a slow industrial production. And the point is that in Germany we had seen very high energy prices, the same for other countries in Europe. But in Germany we have a lot of energy intensive industries. So the car and truck industry is not energy intensive, but for example the chemical industry, and they reduce their production a lot. Now the production numbers from the chemical industry are below the numbers in the COVID pandemic, for example, or in the financial crisis. So, but this is the actual situation in other industries. So, if you account for that, then the growth in Germany is very weak, and this is also a big topic for the commercial vehicle industry, because if you do not produce something, you do not have to transport it, and if you do not transport it, you do not need a truck. So that's why the situation for the commercial vehicle industry is in the moment a bit complicated due to the overall economic situation. So as I said, if you compare Germany with other comparable countries, industrial countries, so in the moment we are at the end of the tables where you sort the different countries by growth. You see, for example, United Kingdom is a bit stronger, France, Italy, Japan, Canada, Spain. All the countries see in the moment a higher growth. So, but if you look to all the indicators, to all the set of numbers, then you see that the lowest point in the business cycle is behind us. And if you look to the indicators which are looking forward, you see that the situation will improve a bit in the second half of this year and next year. So for Germany, the growth, the expected growth for GDP next year is 1.3%, which is much higher than this, what we see actually. So one important point why the German economic development was so weak in the past is the development of the producer prices. So today in the morning, Mr. Schmitz talked about this, how the energy prices and the producer prices developed. And here you see, for example, in 2022, that the producer price increased by 45% compared to 1 year before. So at the end of 2022, it was 45% more expensive to produce the same products than 1 year before. So an immense inflation effect. And if you look to the numbers from this year, so here it's below the zero line, so the prices decrease due to lower energy prices, but, and here you see the same figure as in the presentation from Mr. Schmitz, we are still on a very high level. So this is a row from beginning from 1977, and you see we had never seen an increase in the producer prices like we saw in 2022, and now we are here at the end, and this is quite a lot higher than in the past. And this is of course a problem for industry which is in a competition worldwide, because, as you know, the automotive industry is in a worldwide competition, and when you have a price shock like this has effects on the competitiveness of the industry. So this is a figure which shows what happens in the automotive industry in the past. So if you look to the green line, here the companies are asked, do you have production restrictions? And the green line says the number of companies, the percentage of companies who say yes. So at the end here, we see that something like 65% of the companies say yes, we have production restrictions in the moment. And the other lines show the reason for this. So if you look, for example, in the past, then we see that the orange line was near in 2022 more or less the same as the green line. So in these times, we have 90% of the companies in Germany in the automotive industry which said, okay, we have production restrictions, and more or less the same number of companies said the reason is a shortage of material, for example, semiconductors, but it was also a long period where more or less everything, we had a shortage in everything. And this was a period when we saw a lot of interruptions in the worldwide supply chains. It begins with COVID, and then we saw problems with the ships worldwide, with containers and so on. And in this period, it was very hard to produce something in Germany, but also in other parts of the world. And this leads to a situation where we have very high order books, but a very low production. So there was a period where the order books was on an all-time high, and the production was as low as the last time in 1975. So, and this was a big effect for the market, because it was not possible to get a new truck or a new van or a new bus, or you have to wait a long time to get it. It was a big problem for the trailer companies, because they produced trailer, but there was not a truck which can go for the trailer and bring it to the customers. Yeah, and the influence of these effects are still in the market. So now, as you see, the orange line is quite low in the moment. It's not a problem for the companies anymore. Now we have other reasons. So one reason is, for example, the black line order shortage. This increased in the last quarters, or we see a lack of skilled workers. But now there is not one reason which makes problems for the companies. We have multiple reasons which are restricting the production in the moment. So if we look to the customers, and we see, for example, road freight transport, the business climate in this area, which is in the moment not very good. It's below the zero line. So the expectations, for example, this is a green line, is the most companies are not very positive and optimistic for the future. If it's below zero, they are pessimistic. If it's above, they are optimistic. So the business situation and the expectations in the sector are still not very good in the moment. So here we see some market numbers. This is a German market for vans up to, so commercial vehicles up to 6 tons. And this is over the months in the years. The orange line are the sales numbers, the registration numbers from this year. And the green line is last year, black is 2022, and the dotted line is the long time average. So you see that we are in this year with a very good start, very good beginning of the year, so quite above the long-time average and quite above the year last year. And here you see, for example, if you look to the black line, this was the period with shortages. So in this time, you were not able to bring the vans in the market. It was much below the long-time average. So after the first 5 months, we saw an increase in the market for 13%, and we expect that it will lower a bit in the next months, but we will see a very good market volume this year, so 279,000 commercial vehicles in the German market. So if we look to the heavy trucks over 6 tons, so here the situation is a bit more complicated. The long-time average for the German market is 82,000 trucks. And last year we saw increase by 24%, so a very huge number, and 88,000. And this was a situation after the shortages where it was possible to bring the trucks in the market, and that's why the market increased much more than before. You see 2022 was very weak, and last year we saw the very big numbers after the shortages. So in the moment, if you look to the incoming orders, they are lower than last year. So the order books are also lower than in the past, and that's why we expect something which we call normalization. So we go back to the long-time average, a bit below, but something like 78,000 trucks. So the trailer market, semi-trailers over 6 tons, is in a downward trend since the beginning of last year, and the situation is still there. So this year, I think we will see a market below the numbers from last year. Also, the multi-axle trailers over 6 tons are weaker than last year's. So the overall situation is due to the overall situation of the trailer market is complicated due to the bad industrial production in Germany, as I said at the beginning. So if we look outside from Germany, then we see that the European market on the right-hand side, we expect this year 277,000 trucks over 6 tons. This is more or less the long-time average. Last year we saw also, not only in Germany, also in Europe, a big increase in the market, plus 18%. And this year, again, a normalization after the big order backlogs. So the situation in the United States is a bit better. So as I said at the beginning, the GDP growth in the United States is something like 2 or 3% this year. So it's very robust. And here we see the order situation is better than in Europe, but also due to the high interest rates in the United States, we expect a decrease. So much more dynamics are in the markets for trucks in China. Here we see the long-time average is something like 1.3 million trucks. In 2022, very low, just the half of this. But this year, the numbers look quite good, something like plus 30%. But here's also numbers included for exports to other parts in the Asian region. Now some numbers for electric mobility. Today we saw a lot of talks and heard a lot of talks about electric mobility, and it's nothing what is only on a fair and only in Hannover. It's something what happens in the markets, and here you see some numbers how different parts of commercial vehicles develop. So first of all, light commercial vehicles up to 3.5 tons. You see here the different European countries and the share of electric vehicles in the segment in the different countries. For example, the country with the highest share of electric vehicles for commercial vehicles up to 3.5 tons is Norway. 37.4% of the market are electric vans. In Sweden, 26.6, so much higher than last year, more or less. It doubled since 1 year before, and then you see a lot of markets where it's more or less the same number. But of course, you see a lot. For example, if you look to Switzerland or to Austria and Spain or to Sweden, that the value from this year differs a lot from last year, and this also can be due to different policies for incentives and so on. So this is a market, of course, which is very sensitive to the incentives from the government. So the first slide was for the market shares. These are the absolute numbers. So what is the biggest market for electrified vans? And this is France. So in France, we saw in the first quarter something like 7,000 electrified vans. On the second place, United Kingdom, and on the third place, Germany. So in Norway is the share very high, but the market is not so big, and that's why the 37% market share only something like 2,500 vans. So here are the other registration for commercial vehicles. So this is over 3.5 tons, and here you see that the shares are smaller than for the vans, but they are also significant. So in Norway, for example, 10% of all commercial vehicles over 3.5 tons are electrified. And here Switzerland, Denmark are also on the top places. And again, here we have still a high volatility in the individual cases. If you look, for example, to France, this differs a lot, or also to Austria. So now some numbers for the heavy trucks, over 16 tons. And here, in the moment, this year, the share in the market is the highest in Switzerland, 7.6%. Then Sweden, Norway, again on the place 2 and 3. But if you look, for example, to the European average, it's just 1% of the market at the moment. And if you look again here to the numbers, so the most trucks we have seen in the first quarter this year in Germany, something like 300 electrified trucks, then the Netherlands and France on the other places 2 and 3. And here you can see, we see markets where the electrified trucks are really on this, where is really a demand for this. And the last slide here, electrified buses, so over 3.5 tons. And here you see the numbers, so the market shares are much higher than for the trucks, and also for the heavy ones and for the light ones. And for example, in Denmark, in the first quarter, 79.9% of all buses was electrified. So quite a high number. But also in Belgium, 37%. And here, of course, if you have not so big distances, for example, for city buses, so here we have a lot of use cases which work very good for electrified buses. And here again, the units, the most units so far in this year in UK, then Germany and France on the place 2 and 3. Yeah, now I have shown you a lot of numbers about electrified trucks, The numbers in some cases are low, but after the IAA in Hanover, I think they will increase, and we will see more electrified commercial vehicles in the markets in 2025. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Do you have a figure for the total market for the heavy-duty truck sector in China? Because usually they consider over 14 tons. And do you have some figures of Class 8 heavy-duty trucks in the US? Thank you.
Yes, I have numbers for this. When I begin with numbers for Class 8 trucks in the United States, then we expect a decrease this year for the heavy trucks. So the Class 4 to 7, they will increase this year, but Class 8 will decrease. But then we expect for 2025 and 2026 an increase, because there comes a different regulation in 2027. And that's why the market for Class 8 trucks will decrease a lot. And we expect a strong 2026 and 2025 due to a pre-buy effect. But this year, a small dip. And I also have some numbers for China, but in the moment I don't have them in my mind, so maybe I show you them afterwards.